Okay,
Okay.
cool. All right. I think we got it. I guess we'll just leave it up there like that. Hello, my name's MC. I'm a senior here. I'm part of the softball team as a manager coach. I played the past 3 years, but I just wanted to thank you for coming today. We're here to talk about the Yips, and I'm just gonna go right into it. This is my junior year of high school. I was catching behind the plate, helmet on my head, batter in the box, and I look to my right and for a pitch call from my coach, and I see a senior on my soccer team who I really looked up to sitting in the stands. So I wanted to do well, right? And when I gave the sign to the pitcher and the ball hit my glove, the way that I muffed the throw back to the pitcher wasn't like anything I've ever experienced before. And from there, it's been a downward spiral since. And to this day, I still have the yips, but I've managed it, and that's what I'm here to talk about. So this happens in athletes at the highest level. There was a Yankees second baseman in 1999 who muffed the throw to first base, but could throw from the outfield fine. And it happens in casual players just playing rec ball when the pressure is low. Okay. And it shows up in specific tasks and motions. So the situation like I was in behind the plate, I could pick off anybody from second base fine, but I couldn't just throw the ball back to the pitcher, right? Super low stakes throw. And so if the yips and these other sports related movement problems where say you're at the free throw line and you just forget how to shoot, you've done it a million times, right? If it's solely a matter of anxiety, why does it show up in certain motions, in certain situations? Okay. And I'm here because I care about you. So I told you my experience and my story, and I encourage you to talk about it with the person next to you if you've had it. And if not, ask, think about what it might feel like. Just like 2 minutes real quick.
But I feel like I think that maybe I have, but they just never explained it to me as what this was. So it's just like need to face your stroke. As and it's like in back stroke, a lot of times like people have like back stroke and then they'll like try to cross their arm over their head and then like literally like with your core like on the other side of your body. And it's so correct. It's like
Yeah.
Keep your head down if you do it. And then keep it like, it did.
I don't know how to end this. Okay. All right. So the first thing I want to say is that you're human. The yips is a part of being human, and it's okay. And what's really fascinating about the yips is I wrote a 15-page research paper on it for my neuromuscular physiology class. Like, I know all the pathophysiology, how it happens, the treatments out there that they think they can help with it. And, you know, it all came down for me as the yips being a sign of a strong spirit. And you have to care so much that through a mind-body connection, you're altering neuromuscular physiology and interrupting well-advanced motor skill systems and complex muscle memory. Okay, you've done it a million times. I've thrown the ball back to the pitcher more times than I could ever imagine. And it's with this thought that taught me how to get through it. And I'm gonna read this to you for a moment so I can really capture it. It's not about making sense. It's about making sensation. It's about noticing how the yips shows up in your body, noticing how it feels and where, noticing what thoughts are in your head, where do they come from, who's saying them. Listen to your body. You know, if this mind-body connection can alter your neuromuscular pathways in this way, then it certainly can be the key to managing them. So it's this shift in perspective from problem to possibility. The yips is an opportunity to become extremely resilient. And I know that sounds backwards, but it's all about a growth mindset and just discovering your potential. So when I feel the yips, I enter a meditative state that I've been practicing for the past year in my Chinese medicine studies. So I close my eyes, I take a deep breath, and I let all that doesn't serve me just melt away. And I become connected to myself and the ground underneath my feet. And when I did this for the first time, when the thought to enter my meditative state just came to me when I was having the yips, I cried. I felt nostalgic. I felt like I was throwing the ball for the first time since my junior year of high school. And I did it. So to enter this meditative state, you have to choose yourself first. And I did this by recognizing that every day is a gift, and doing the things you love with the people you love is what matters the most. So when you choose you're unlocking possibility for yourself that you haven't even imagined yet. I never imagined that I'd be talking to you today about something I struggled so deeply with like 8 years ago. And so I dreamed about what the best version of myself would do and be, and think and act like them, because every thought and action is a vote for the person you want to become. So does that make sense? Like, tell me, is that something new, or is just anything confuse you about that, about like entering that meditative state? No. Does anybody have any thoughts or reactions or reflections on that? Or like similar experiences if you have had the yips?
How do you think that the meditation is kind of directly affected how you view the situation with the yips?
Yeah, well, the meditation has helped me have this shift in perspective. I just thought of it, the yips as a problem, like a disease in a way. Like in Western medicine, they call it a psychoneuromuscular movement disorder. You know, it's pathologized. And there's all sorts of diagnosis and treatments. There's type 1 yips, type 2 yips. And people have tried to treat it with like Botox and even acupuncture, actually. But for me, what I learned from Chinese medicine is that like centering myself and, you know, learning to love myself and choose myself first is what allowed me to see that, you know, this is just limiting my potential and what I can do. Like telling myself that I can't, then I won't. You know, believing that I could helped me achieve a point where when I thought I wasn't capable and overcoming that. So yeah, it was a huge perspective shift, and just like believing that, you know, this mind-body connection that I have, because it's so specific to certain situations, that maybe I could use this as a way to get over it. You know, it was really just the shift in perspective that helped me get through that. Yeah.
Do you know if there are studies on this, or is this like a relatively new thing? It's your own personal experience, but are there others?
Right.
That you've heard that done similar to get what it is?
Yeah. Well, it was first coined in the 1980s by a golfer, a Scottish golfer named Tommy Moore, and it's happened in professional athletes, you know, since then. in golf, softball, baseball. There was a softball pitcher for Florida State who couldn't throw a rise ball for a year, but she got over that. And so there has been a little bit of research like in the medicine side of things and like in the psychology world, but there's not a lot. It was really hard to squeeze like 15 pages of research out of it, but none of it was very conclusive. It's just trying to figure out how can we like figure that like what's happening in people. Like there's comparisons to something called a focal dystonia, where it's like impulsive, like hand jerks and movements, like when you're throwing a dart. But that's not quite the same thing here, because it's not so much an uncontrollable thing. There's a moment where it does occur in the mind, but it's really hard to tell where it happens on the neuromuscular pathway in the body. But when I came to figure out how I got over it, it wasn't about making sense of any of that. It was really just figuring out what's going on inside of me, like noticing how my arm felt. Like my arm started to seize up the same way that your throat seizes up when you're getting nervous and trying to speak. And just asking myself what I needed in that moment, and just recognizing that, we get to choose how we spend every day. And I got to choose a step, like take a step back in that moment and just breathe. Like I didn't have to, like I was allowed to take time, So there's not much research, but I think through like conversations like these and sharing our story, maybe not on a academic scholarship level, is what is really going to help people. Like the reason why I'm here today is someone commented on the YouTube video I made for the class that I wrote the paper in, saying, thank you for sharing your research. This is a super under talked about topic and we need more of it. So, and I posted that video like over a year ago, and that was like the 6th view on the video. So it was just like super random. But yeah.
How are you able to maintain that meditation, like when you're in a high stakes situation, like you're moving really fast? Or
yeah, for me, the yips has never manifested in a high like adrenaline state, like where I'm taking off with like someone on first base or anything like that. It more like happens in the moments when I do have a moment to think about the throw. But I would say that if it did happen in a high stakes case and I was in the middle of something, there have been times when I had to make a throw and I just ran the ball straight there. So it's just knowing that your goal is to get the ball where it needs to go. And for me, it was just finding a way to do that, and just trusting myself that I could get it there no matter what it looked like or how stupid I looked. Or giving it, just tossing to someone else to throw it. So that's just like an example in softball, and I have done that in a game. So yeah.
What advice would you give to the coaches that are here if one of their athletes has a situation?
For me, just talking about it, like feeling safe enough and comfortable enough to talk about it without being shamed or judged, and knowing that it is a part of being human and that you can get better. Like having that confidence from a coach that can recognize that in an athlete. Like I recognize it in athletes at this school, and I recognize it in people I watch on TV. I see it because I've had it, so it's easier for me to recognize. But I would just encourage coaches to be open to talking about it, because I've had coaches that just thought that if we talk about it, it'll spread and people will just suffer from it in silence. But for me, I truly believe that talking about it is the way to get through it. It's the start, it's the first step. And having people that are willing to come talk about it, like me, and share my story and how I got through it. And it's like how we can all kind of get through this. This is going to happen. It's a part of being human. But just knowing that we can collectively come together and support ourselves, with the people around us, that's just how we're going to get better. Yeah.
I agree, MC. There's an island green on the local golf course that gets into my head every time. There's a tee box for that.
Mhm.
But what I picture when I walk to that tee box is me in the shot where it lands on the green, or at least on the island and not in the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the guided visual imagery also really helps me too. Yeah. But when I also think about where I want, like if I play golf too, so where I want the ball to land on the green, I not only imagine myself doing the act, I imagine the energy that I'm doing it with. So like I imagine how I'm feeling, the confidence that I have, being sure of myself, having faith that like just trusting. I know my swing, the muscle memory will get me there. So yeah. Anybody else have any comments they want to make?
Does it have a different feel from, this is just a technical error that I'm having versus this is the yip feel? Like, is it a completely different feel from an error, performance error versus the mind and the body?
The body, yeah.
Does it feel different?
I don't know if it's quiet as black and white, but I think it depends on an athlete's reaction post-play. You know, like what are their initial thoughts and reactions? That'll tell you whether it's more of a yip or if it's just a mistake, like the ball slips their finger, or you know, they just made a bad throw. I think it definitely depends on how someone responds to making that error, and whether it's more of just, you know, just simply a, you know, mistake, or if it's something larger than that, that's operating on like that mind body level. Yeah, so I would really look in like the response of players after they make a mistake to see, you know, if the yips is happening. Yeah, or like, you know, sometimes in a softball, when I like pump my arm, like before I throw the ball, that's like a little way that kind of shows me that someone's struggling with throwing the ball and having maybe a yip. So that's just kind of like one thing. If someone's like hesitating, and then it's just like completely like they've just lost their mechanics in that moment, and the throw is not like based on bad mechanics, but just a total like loss of muscle memory in that moment, then yeah. So, and I know some people that have had that happen to them, and they would stepwise like go through the mechanics like one step at a time and then get it back. So like they would just start like, you know, setting their feet and then get in their arm set and then throwing, you know, that helps too. So, yeah.
So mentally, what do you think before every throw you make back to like the pitcher, like a close-up throw? Like, what's going through your mind versus like an outfield throw?
I love myself, to be honest. I have a really unique experience of having a mom who's been sick my whole life, and it has enabled me to remember that every day is a gift, and that just, you know, I'm here because I love what I do and I'm with the people that I love. And so I just tell myself I got this. Like when I was struggling with this, I would physically say out loud, I can. I didn't believe it, but I wasn't throwing it right. And I said it till I believed it. And then when I believed it, I started doing it. And it seems really hard to get to that point, but you just have to start by saying out loud, I can. And then having someone like my friend freshman year here would come with me into the field house and just throw with me for like an hour. And I would just say out loud, I can. And I would just throw the ball and just push through that barrier and throw it as hard as I could. And then I would practice lobbing it and making good throws. And I just kept trying to believe in myself and then let the action come, really. Yeah. You know, it's really hard to be vulnerable like this and to just, you know, admit and, you know, be brave enough to share this story. And I know a lot of people are going through it. So that's why I thought it was extremely important to come talk about it today. And I wanted to tell you guys this perspective on confidence versus courage that I recently came across. And it's courage is the guts to do something in the face of uncertainty without evidence, if for the first time we're doing something in a different way than before that assured successful outcomes. Whereas confidence is pretty much repetitive success. So I want you to have the guts to go out there and do something you've done well before. Just because you are incapable of doing it in that moment doesn't mean you can't do it. Because what you know now, what you're certain of yourself now, what you think you can do is not the limit of your potential. It's just the beginning. You know, if like I dreamed about being a good thrower, like I just thought like, what would the best version of myself do in that moment? And then I started acting and thinking like that person. I spent hours in the field house throwing with my friend, not ashamed of yelling out loud, I can. And yeah. So if you have more questions, I can answer them afterwards, but I just wanted to thank you for listening and thank you for being brave enough to be in this space and talk about the yips, because the more we understand it and the more we share our story, the more courage and confidence we have to be the best version of ourselves. So thank you.
See, on behalf of all of us, thank you for being brave and
Thank you.
courage and taking time out of your day to spend with us. We really honor that a lot. And I'm so grateful your family got to be a part of it too. We love you all. I don't know if Corey's here. Oh, he is here. Cora, I said I could take this picture too. I know Cora came to take a picture of all of us
Oh, okay.
together.
Cool.
I was gonna say we could do it outside, but it's pouring rain.
I'm gonna stop the recording.
That's a great.
So.
These are